Hi, I'm Garm and this is Midgardia's cool crowdfunding show. I'm here today with Brando. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm guessing it's a beautiful day down there in what I assume to be California, judging by the flags.
No, I'm actually in middle of Missouri.
Oh, is
The
that
flag
the
itself is a new California Republic flag.
from Follow? Yeah,
Yeah, I don't support the current California, but the new California Republic pretty good
I'm more of
and not
a
at all a expansionist authoritarian state.
yeah, totally. California on there from here.
Yeah, no, it's very good. Like I've had so many people like, "Are you from California?" I'm like, "No, I'm from the middle of nowhere."
Yeah, I have a
At least California standards, middle of nowhere.
yeah. I used to have a Browncoats flag from Firefly that I used to keep behind me on stream, but there's no good place for it anymore. That
Yeah.
get people going, where is that flag from? Where are you? And I'm like, well, I'm Canadian, but so why don't you tell us a little bit about the witch class that you're publishing with HopePunk Press?
Yeah, so the witch class is something very near and dear to my heart. I have been working on it for the last 2 years now, and it is finally come to fruition. It originally was born out of a love for the Pathfinder witch, one of my favorite classes from Pathfinder 1. Uh, but as it evolved, it took on a life of its own, and there's kind of nothing from the Pathfinder Witch besides that like love of familiar, and even that is kind of a stretch. It's had a lot of revisions and changes as concepts have come in and out of the class.
All right. So there's a lot of witch classes out there, as I'm sure our lovely viewers are aware. What makes this one special and unique?
I would have no idea, partially because I while working on this, I avoided all of the other witch classes to not poison the well and end up inadvertently plagiarizing other people's work. The things that I would imagine makes it unique, I don't think, from what I've heard, that any other witch class offers the split path where a choice you make at the beginning of the class actually determines both your other options and your spell list for the class. You have what is called the witching hour, which is you choose the hour that you commune to prepare your spells. And if you commune at dawn, you get a certain spell list. But if you commune at dusk, you get a different spell list. And this is a choice that you make at first level. It's not like a you choose each day, but this is the type of magic that you commune with, and the time of day really affects things. And I don't think any other classes or anything in D&D that I've seen offers that.
Right. It's really easy to forget that like time actually passes in D&D.
Right? There are things called days.
Yeah, it's wild. As far as I was aware, the day was just like 8 hours of rest and then 5 minutes of combat and then 8 hours of rest.
Right. I think the most criminally underutilized rule in the player's handbook is you cannot rest more than once in 24 hours. They spelled that out, and people are just like, "What is this?" I don't see it. It does not exist.
Yeah, my DM started enforcing that, and our life has been a lot harder since.
Yeah, you got to do encounters now.
Yeah, sucks. I can't blow every single spell on my first fight.
Sorry, paladins.
No, the real sufferers are the barbarians. You can only do so many rages in a day.
Yeah, barbarians at least get a couple combats. I feel paladins are just like you can just use all of your spells. You can
Smite,
just go.
smite, smite, smite. Yeah. So, all right. So you've got the split path at the beginning with the witching hour, and then you've got the conduits as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So the conduits are the other half of choice that you make at the beginning of the class. And the conduits really flesh out the flavor of the class and also what it does. So the idea of the conduit, what makes the witch different than a wizard, because they are both intelligence-based spellcasters. One of, I might add, the most agonizing choices that I made for the witch, because I could see the case for all three mental stats. But the thing that really differentiates them is their conduits. Because rather than choosing a a specific school or style, like a wizard would, the witch chooses a specific type of thing with which to draw forth their magic. The flavor of which being that each type of spell component can act as a conduit. And most spellcasters, they use all of their different spell components and they cast their magic. But the witch kind of recognizes that the conduits, the actual spell components, those change the magic a little bit. And as you become adept in utilizing one of those, your magic in turn changes and certain things become very easy for you. And so the conduits, they provide that flavor. So there's a couple of base conduits that come in the base version of the witch, and each type of conduit has a really cool concept. With most of the conduits, we tried to show the duality of dawn and dusk and how all of that interlocks to change and warp magic. As an example of one of the conduits, the first conduit in the book is the blood conduit. And for the Dusk Witch, the blood magic drawing through blood is very sinister. It you are taking blood and you are using it to power your spells. You are taking blood from creatures that you have slain and using it to empower yourself. But then on the flip side, the Dawn Witch has learned to channel through blood in a very different way. They are channeling through blood altruistically, and they are taking their own blood and giving of themselves, and they are channeling it in a very different way. And then each conduit changes the way not only that the witch casts and the abilities that they have, but also warps the witch's familiar, which is kind of the third integral piece of the witch puzzle.
Cool. That's I like blood magic. I'm a sucker for it. It's very neat, and I like that duality of like using your own versus using other people's.
It's very classic fantasy. I knew I had to include it when I started writing up the class.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the fourth conduit in each one don't correlate to each other. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so that was it kind of was born when I was just experimenting with a lot of different ideas. And I realized that although they're not perfect mirrors, they they both are of a similar idea. And the two kind of counter-imposing conduits, although they are not named the same like the other three like split conduits, are bones and spirits. And bones is the utilitarian, more sinister side, in which the witch says, "This thing, I will recycle it. It is mine. I will use it." It's very dusk, if anything, can be thought of as a little bit more selfish. It Bones, you are taking something that is not yours, something that once belonged to a living creature. You are repurposing it with your magic to suit your own ends. Spirits is again kind of themed around the dead, but rather than taking the material remnants, spirits channels the leftover soul, and the spirit witch communes with different spirits and gives up themselves. They give up their material husk to allow the spirit to manifest. And so they're not the same, but they do mirror each other in a way, just not one that can be reflected in like a linguistic sense.
Right. So you've got like the bone stealing witch versus somebody who allows themselves to be possessed. Is that correct?
Exactly.
All
Yes.
right. Never thought I'd say the word bone stealing witch in 2020, but
That I believe bone stealing witches was peak like 2014 Tumblr. If you were around at that time, there was
unfortunately,
a lot of bone stealers at that time.
yeah, I think it was a little later than that, but like time's a myth, man.
I do. Tumblr existed like 8 years ago for me, and like that's all. Even though I've been on it, it's still stuck 8 years ago.
I've been there for 11 years.
Oh,
I still have an active account. You can follow
that's
me
a little
there.
bit longer than me. Yep.
Yeah. I was in high school when I started that, and now I'm like 20, 28. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
And it's like it's weird how it's changed over all that time.
Yeah, it's very different from what I missed I miss the discourse lines. That's the biggest thing I miss from old Dumbler.
If you get in the right community, you can still find a lot of good arguments, and much less like 13-year-olds encountering it for the first time. So there's
Uh
that.
but like I'm just talking like when you knew a post was really spicy when you saw like 18 different lines of quote text to where you couldn't even read the original post because it was a one character string.
Oh man, I try not.
The good
Yeah,
old discourse lines.
right. I got you. Yeah, the old Tumblr layout. That was You still see it on some people's teams, and it's just like, oh god, it's like
It's
looking at
back.
a silent movie or something, you know?
And the abrasive blue, like it was so good.
Uh, at least nobody puts autoplay music on their themes anymore, as far as I've seen.
I miss that too. It was a throwback to a simpler time. We're not going to talk about Gaia Online though.
Yeah, yeah. I feel old all of a sudden.
Sorry
uh,
to sidetrack the interview.
oh man, that is perfectly fine. Uh, so witches who steal bones. Um, I also just want to say, as I'm like flipping through this, I absolutely adore the 20th level ability, the zoomorphic hut. Um, for those of you who have not read this, please go buy it. There's a link below. Um, it's Baba Yaga's hut, except however you want. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's just one of those things. Like you got to have it. Like I was like, what is it? What you need it? Like you don't need it till 20, but it needs to be there. It just felt right.
Yeah, it could be Baba Yaga's hut. It could be the cat bus. It could be. There's a lot of things it could be. I like that.
That is. I'm glad that somebody appreciate. Like it's there to do what you want with it.
Yeah,
It felt better than like 4 sorcery points
yeah.
as a capstone. Don't get me started on how awful half of the D&D 5 original capstones are.
So you mentioned familiars were one of the other aspects of the witch. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so familiars came into concept. Like I said, it's that last holdover from the Pathfinder which is in Pathfinder, the familiar was the spell book. I knew that was something that I wanted to avoid, just because one of the feel bads of the Pathfinder witch was if you lost your familiar, then you couldn't prepare spells. But I also knew that familiar. I wanted to experiment with familiar still being a core component of the class. And so it was kind of born of that. And what familiars have become is kind of this sidekick to the witch that plays up a lot more and adds a lot more power to the class than a traditional familiar from Find Familiar would, but in a way that's very different from the warlock. With the Pact of the Chain. And I knew that, like, a witch who's out there communing with nature and finding their own way with magic, having a magical side buddy that helps them, one, it's very evocative and fun. And two, what I found is people love familiars. Like, people just love having an animal sidekick, and people really love having an animal sidekick that can speak languages and has an intelligence score of 10, because I feel like that's what people wanted out of the familiars half the time anyways. So the witch first rectifies that and gives you like a functional familiar that can speak and actually be a buddy, but also a familiar that does more than just the help action in combat. Like I stated before, familiars are shaped by their conduit connection. At first level, this manifests as a thematic change, like the Blood Witch's familiar will grow fangs, or the Witch of Threads, their familiar. If you look at it in the ethereal plane, you see a small red cord tying them to their master. Just small things like that. But at 6th level is where the real meat of the familiar's ability comes in, and there's some pretty fun stuff in there. including, I think, what is my personal favorite, the Threads Witch, which is all about manipulating fate. Their familiar gets the lucky feat. So your familiar can bend fate a little bit, or maybe have some attacks miss it, or make some saves that you really wanted it to. But again, only for itself, which balances the lucky feat. It was both something that I think is very fun for a familiar to have, and also as a designer, putting the lucky feet in a place that's not actually broken, I feel is an accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it helps the familiar not die, which most people are pretty happy about.
Yeah, most familiars die to a stiff breeze, but with the witch getting a little bit more AC for the familiar, a little bit more health, and then if you're lucky, it can actually make a huge difference in keeping your friend around.
And even if you're not lucky, your familiar will be. So there's that.
Exactly. You die, but your familiar's fine, and like that's enough.
So, in terms of general tone, like on the spectrum from Kiki's delivery service to I have been trying to think of a much more dire witch, and closest I got is Elvira, who I don't know if she's actually a witch. I got nothing. Some really dark witch. Where does this fit?
Honestly, I think that the class kind of runs the spectrum. It really acknowledges that witches can be very different things. I think it tends a little bit more to the serious side, just because I think D&D itself tends a little bit more to the serious side, unless your group changes that, which is very easy to do. But I don't think that it falls. I don't think that it leans too heavily on one or the other, because as an example, like the Blood Witch, it's pretty edgy. I'm just gonna be honest. The Blood Witch is the edgiest one, and it's very edgy, especially the Dusk Blood Witch. But like the Witch of Masks on the Dawn Conduit, it's kind of lighthearted and fun. There, it can be either.
I like having fun personally. I mean,
Heck yeah.
I also like being super edgy. I'm not gonna lie.
You
There's
gotta have fun edge.
exactly fun edge. That's my new aesthetic. Um,
Pastel edge.
all right, I'm gonna go find some pastel colored like razor blade shaped patches to iron onto all my clothing now.
I'm certain that they exist. Pastel goth is a thing. This is the leap from pastel goth.
Yeah, absolutely. um, I feel like I had another question, but my mental faculties are slowly escaping me, being absorbed by the
I'm
concept
sorry.
of pastel edge. It's perfectly all right. Um, so what's your favorite conduit?
What is my favorite conduit? That's tough. Partially because I haven't actually gotten to play any of the conduits. I've only designed them, and just also because they're all my children and I love all of them equally. So I can't pick favorites, but if I am picking favorites, I really, really like the Dawn Witch of Spirits. Which is kind of odd because generally I like to go in with a plan, and the Dawn Witch of Spirits can't always do that because you kind of just got to roll the dice and see what spirit's your friend that day. But there's just a lot of fun stuff in that class and a ton of role play opportunity in that conduit that I don't think is anywhere else in D&D 5. So I think that one holds probably the most special place in my heart. If we're not going with that, I think the Dawn Witch of Threads also just, it's very classic fate bender that helps your allies, and I enjoy a supportive playstyle.
Right, so that one leans more on like threads in the sense of the Norns from like Norse mythology kind of thing going on, the threads of fate.
Exactly, the Threads of Fate. and weaving the tapestry either in favor of your allies for dawn or against your enemies for dusk.
Rad. I dig it.
And it's very classic, just changing fortune to suit your needs.
Excellent. Also, I like the art. I haven't mentioned that yet.
Yeah, Grimm is a fantastic artist. I've had this piece for a long time now because I knew I would eventually release, and I am more pleased with that than anything. They did such a great job.
Yeah, it fits the feel quite well.
Yeah, I thought so. I love it.
Do you have anything else you'd like to bring up while you're here?
Uh, I will say something new that we're trying, if you check out The Witch, is that we're trying the concept of stretch goals within drive-through RPG. It's something that I've seen bandied about a little bit, and I brought it up as something that we might try, and we're trying it here. And what that is we have different like drive-through RPG milestones that we would like to hit. And if we hit those milestones, we will add additional things to the class as a free update, as like a hey community, thank you, kind of like a Kickstarter stretch goal. We have kind of like gotten enough to justify all of this extra time spent to make more things a reality for the class, but rather than like release that as another paid product, like thank you for supporting us. Take this additional thing. And it starts out with some witch magic items that I've been working on. That you have a lot of like wizard and druid and cleric specific magic items in the in the DMG, but you don't have any witch specific magic items because those don't exist. So there's going to be a couple of those coming along, assuming we can hit silver status. And I've sketched out the rough pictures of the conduits, and I'm very excited for them. I don't think any are as integral to what is in the Witch release, or else they would have been in there. But there's some stuff we're gonna have to test. It's all very rough right now, but the concepts of the conduit of frost, and then the conduit of iron, and then the conduit of clay. They're all things that I kind of knew I eventually wanted to do with the Witch, and all of them are pretty cool. Even the conduit of clay, which is the thing that I said probably should never happen with the Witch, and I'm breaking a lot of my own design philosophies, but we're gonna try it out and make it happen. It's the thing that I know everybody's gonna ask for, which is with the Witch, which is the gray caster, the person who can do a little bit of both.
Right, you're like gray Jedi kind of thing.
Your gray Jedi, your red mage, like it's such a popular archetype, and I'm like, you know, there's limits for a reason, but I'm pushing how can those limits be broken, and I think we can make it happen.
Excellent. And since you're publishing this through, actually, no, I have one more topic to bring up before I get to
Oh
that.
yeah.
It is important for me to note, since this show is called Cool Crowdfunding, this is not actually a crowdfunding product. This is on Drive-Thru-RPG right now. There's a link down there.
Yes.
Um,
You don't have to wait.
yeah. We may not have thought that through when we decided this on the name of the show, but here we are. 60 episodes in, and it's too late to change it.
Y'all are a crowd and you're funding us.
Exactly.
It's crowdfunding in a general sense, just not the specific sense that the word is normally used.
Exactly. There you go. Buy it, help hit those stretch goals.
Exactly.
So since this is coming out through HopePunk Press, best known for Spaceships and Starworms, which we have played many times, do you have any plans for some kind of integration of that into that wonderful setting?
So we've discussed it, and the witch kind of falls into the place of the wizard. Its natural home isn't necessarily in the Spaceships and Starworms universe. It doesn't like fulfill any specific niche that's necessary, but also like the wizard, it's very, very easy to convert. So it's one of those things where I don't think there's any official release planned to bring the witch over to Spaceships and Starworms because it's kind of not necessary. The witch on its own integrates pretty darn well. Spaceships and Starworms released the free guide you can go pick up on Drive-Thru RPG, like how to put the wizard in Spaceships and Starworms. That'll 100% just, you can use that for the witch. completely translates over. You're using some different equipment, but nothing in the witch really doesn't work. And unlike some of the other classes that did need to be reworked, like the adept or the vanguard, the witch doesn't face those same challenges.
Okay, yeah, just slap a laser gun in her hand and give her a Roomba for a familiar, and you're set.
Oh my. Okay, now I'm thinking, do we need Roomba familiars? I'll bring that up.
Excellent. Well, yeah, this looks like a ton of fun. And I know you said you haven't read all the other witches. I've read a bunch of them, and there are definitely a lot of things that stand out in here. Not least of which the level 20 capstone of then you get Baba Yaga's hut or a cat bus or something.
Hell yeah.
uh, um, yeah, I think that about wraps it up. Uh,
Awesome.
it's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure being on. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And for those of you watching at home, there's a link down below, and have a good night.